have you ever met someone that felt like you knew them in a past life? According to the soul contract theory, every major connection in your life was pre-planned before you were even born. Another sign of a soul contract is repeating patterns. You might notice synchronicities, like meeting the same type of person over and over. What's happening here is you're meeting the same type of person over and over to learn a lesson that you haven't yet learned. So it will often show up in the form of a different person, but the same lesson. Really quickly, hi friends, if we haven't met yet, my name is Krizia. I'm genuinely on a mission to help you level up your life from the inside out. So if that sounds like you, please hit the subscribe button so you can join the community. It really helps content like this get pushed out to the right people. Let's get into today's topic. I immediately sat down to film this because I knew that it was on my heart and soul to share it with you guys. This is gonna be a good one. I know that it is meant to find you for a reason. Today, we're gonna be talking about the soul contract theory. I have been learning about this for quite some time now, and it just dawned on me that I never actually shared it on my channel yet, and so I got so excited to do that. So what is the soul contract theory? That's what we're going to be covering in this video. My personal experience with this soul contract theory all started from when my soul pet, there is such thing as having a soul animal come into your life even. And I believe that my dog, who recently passed away 2 years ago, I truly believe this was my soul pet, my soul animal. He came into my life. I had just gotten out of a relationship that didn't end very well. I was super young. His family had a litter of puppies, and he was the little runt that just stood out to me. And I didn't even think I wanted to adopt a dog at the time or like take home a puppy by any means. But something about him specifically, this little baby puppy just spoke to me, and I felt like I had to have him. Then I would go on to have this amazing soul pet for 14 years of my life. 14 years of my life. He truly grew up with me, went through so many different life changes in my life. Like I had gone to college, I had moved cities, I had gone through so many ups and downs, just so many broken toxic cycles. And I think the fact that he even came from a past relationship in itself felt like it was destined to happen. I know this probably sounds crazy to some people, but he just was like that guardian angel in a way in my life. The timing of when he passed away happened because our soul contract was fulfilled, in the sense that he had gotten me to a certain point, had guided me in a way to a point in my life where I finally found stability. The reason why I even found out about the soul contract theory was because after he passed away, it was so ironic to me that not only was I in a healthy relationship now, but I also had finally, and I mean I had finally just felt at peace with myself. Because my entire time of having him in my life, I felt like I was battling so many things, and I had never even done any shadow work of any means. And like the year leading up to him passing suddenly, by the way, was very transformative for my soul. Fully doing inner work for the first time in my life. And I made a major change in my personal life, in my career. And I had just started to feel like I found my soul's purpose. And what are the odds that that same exact timing, he was like, okay, you're ready, you're in good hands, and like transitioned. So I started looking up like what could be the meaning, the symbolic meaning, me being the person that I am, who's spiritual and really believes in a higher power and a higher purpose, and I don't think that anything's an accident. I started doing a ton of research, and I came across this, I think it was like an article, a blog, or even like a book. It had explained it perfectly, where it talked about soul contracts being fulfilled, usually feeling like a chapter closing, a tough period, something that forces you into transformation in a way. And that's when it all kind of connected the dots, that was an example of a soul contract. So I wanted to give you a personal example, but today I want to just kind of explain this soul contract theory in a way that could probably help you in your transformation in your life. So have you ever met someone, or even an animal, that felt like you knew them in a past life? It's almost as if they came into your life at the exact right moment, right timing, completely unexpected. So this is essentially what the soul contract is. According to the soul contract theory, it's that every major connection in your life was pre-planned before you were even born. Our soul apparently chooses the path for us. It makes agreements with others, whether it's a human or an animal, setting us up so that we can experience relationships and situations that will help us evolve, that will help our soul fulfill the contract. And the concept that Akashic Records, which is basically a universal database that stores all soul agreements. There's actually hypnotherapists that did studies. Basically, clients reported that their relationships were chosen before reincarnating. I mean, it gets deep, but we're gonna try to make this as easy to understand as possible. Okay, so what is a soul contract? I just wanna kind of start by saying that not every relationship, not every deep relationship is gonna be considered a soul contract, but I do wanna give you some signs. The first one being that there's usually an instant connection to this person or being in some way. Like it's almost like very familiar, as if you've known them in a past life. And I mean, like this happens almost instantaneously. This kind of happened with my relationship that I've been in. We felt like we immediately clicked and knew each other in a way that was so familiar. And the conversations will flow so effortlessly, almost like you're just kind of picking up where you left off, even though you've just met. And so a lot of people report this kind of feeling, like in my case, even in personal, intimate relationships, or even with mentors, or even it could be with your rivals who challenge you in a certain way, that it's really, really triggering in some way. Which leads me to the second point, is another sign is that you usually feel intense emotions around this person or being. So soul contracts aren't always about love. They can bring emotional highs and lows. In a nutshell, if a relationship triggers a sense of deep healing or personal growth, it's very likely that it's part of your soul's journey. Another sign of a soul contract is repeating patterns. You might notice synchronicities, like meeting the same type of person over and over. What's happening here is you're meeting the same type of person over and over to learn a lesson that you haven't yet learned. So it will often show up in the form of a different person, but the same lesson until you finally learn the right lesson. An example here is you might start dating an emotionally unavailable kind of partner, and you seem to attract this same type of partner over and over. That could be related to a soul contract purpose, where your soul is trying to show you to receive a lesson. And it could be a lesson or some sort of agreement with your soul that is meant to teach you self-worth or self-value. So it's like a repeated pattern. Like some people or animals will come into your life to guide you through a transition in your life. Like I genuinely feel like in my case with my dog, guided me from a transition from being broken and unhealed, and especially coming from a relationship that had just ended, guiding me through to a place where I felt whole, where I felt at peace with myself, and I felt like I was taken care of and in the right environment with the right people. Which is why a lot of times people will feel like their animals, their pets have guided them through a transition or a tough time and are really their comfort pet, guiding you through hardships. And this isn't necessarily like a light, like I had a bad day, my pet makes me feel better. It's a deep feeling, it's a deep emotion, a deep transition that you genuinely feel you could not have fulfilled. And another sign is that this relationship in particular with whomever or an animal really pushes you to evolve. Like these connections catalyze major life changes. Like in my example too, career shifts, self-discovery, or a sense of deep healing, which for me, it was personally all of the above. Because, you know, without getting too deep into my story, I mean, for some of you guys who do know, it was so hard for me to transition from my old career into the unknown, into not even knowing where. It was like this unsettling, kept me up at night all the time feeling, where my soul knew that I was not on the right path. And it was like after that shift, when that same month my dog passed away, it was just crazy. And again, it felt like in my case, like my dog, who I genuinely feel was my soul pet, had guided me through so many life transitions up until the point where it was time for him to transition because his job was fulfilled, and he led me to the place where I was meant to be. And honestly, it's hard to say this because at the time when he first passed away suddenly, it broke me to pieces, like completely shattered me. Also because, you know, I know some people will kind of think this sounds silly because having a pet just seems like having a pet, right? For fun or whatever. But my dog had gotten me through so many deep traumatic experiences. So now let's talk about, how do we know if a soul contract has ended? Because not all soul contracts will last forever. In fact, a lot of them, most of the time, will come into your life for a certain period of time until you learn the lesson, until you fulfill the purpose of the soul agreement. And this will look like a sense of closure. You will often feel after, even if it's something super painful, which it usually is, you will feel this sense of closure eventually, where it feels like something inside of you just knows that that connection is done. The connection has run its course. It's been fulfilled. It feels complete in a way, like you have this sense of closure. It was super painful losing my dog. For like that whole year, I felt so depressed. After that really painful period, I just kind of like made peace with it. And it felt like a really deep sense of closure. And I even had a dream. I saw my dog Mookie in a field of grass, because he loved to sleep in a little ball. He was cuddled up, big field of grass, and it was like an all gold sky horizon where he was glowing. He was like an aura, and he was sleeping in the middle of this field of grass, and I had opened up a door to walk and see him at peace. And that dream really gave me the sense of closure that he is in a better place and everything is okay. Another way that this can show up is, let's say a friendship ended. You don't feel some sort of like anger or resentment towards it. It just naturally fades away, and it's almost like that friendship ran its course and there's no hard feelings. There's a sense of closure. And on the flip side of that, another lesson could be that the growth has sort of stopped. Let's say you're in a relationship where it feels like things have gone stagnant. That could be a sign that it has run its course. It's done what it needed to do, and it's time to move on. That's why I feel like when people leave relationships or get a divorce or something like that, it's because the contract was fulfilled by their soul and it's time to move on. This could even look like, let's say you've been staying in a job that no longer fulfills you and you just suddenly feel it in your gut that it's time to move on. That's a sign that your soul has run its course with this agreement. It's time to close the chapter. The universe kind of gives you this nudge in a new direction that you can't really explain logically. This has happened to me too when I was shifting careers. Like, it almost felt like, even though I had no idea what was coming next, I just knew in my heart and soul that it was time to move on from what I was doing. And that nudge, it could even be repeated signs of roadblocks or things in the way of your path. Sort of like this feeling of misalignment, it could be a sign that it's time to move on. And another example is, again, like a breakup. If you feel like you've made multiple attempts to fix it, but it really feels like you have nothing left to give, that's usually a sign that the universe is trying to nudge you to move on. It's like you no longer feel this pull to the person, thing, or situation. So now the question is, can you rewrite a soul contract, right? Even though things are sort of pre-planned, it's still up to us to fulfill that purpose and follow the nudges we get from the universe, from the higher source. Because if we don't, those patterns will just continue to repeat itself. And basically, it's like it will get passed down in generations if you don't fulfill the contract in this time, and keep going until somebody fulfills the inner work to close that chapter out and to fulfill that soul agreement. So it's really important, if you want to fulfill and break, for example, like a generational curse, until it reaches the right person who's willing to do the inner work, who's willing to choose a different outcome, that is when the generational trauma ends. To pay attention to the signs. If you want to choose a different outcome in this lifetime, we must do the inner work, the shadow work. That's why in families especially, you will see repeated patterns passed down from generations until it reaches the person who said, this is not going to be the outcome for me, and chooses a different outcome. The person who breaks the pattern breaks the cycle. So I know this is kind of an advanced, deep subject, but I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this. Let me know if you've ever experienced a connection that you felt was destined, or even one that changed you forever. If you did make it to the end of this video, feel free to comment down below soul so that I know you watched it till the end, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.